Speaking of 9/11, we're gonna get some Islamophobia. All right. Yeah, this video we've talked about them before. Can't remember her name. Raheel Raza. She works. I guess Rebel News has a like a board that's supposed to like quality control or something. They've mentioned it before. It's not quite a board of directors because Ezra only refers to them as people who give them advice and whatnot. Now, she occasionally does pieces for them, and they always tend to be focused around some aspect of Islamophobia. The reason why I chose this one to go through was just because the title is The Third World War is a War of Ideas, and Totalitarians Are Winning. And the thumbnail said something about like COVID wars or something. Okay? So I'm going into this thinking this is going to be about like COVID or whatnot, but knowing that Raheel often brings up Islamophobia. She was known prior to working with Rebel as being an Islamophobe. She's been a prominent Islamophobe within Canada for a long time. So this is kind of her shtick, but we're going to see how she spins this weird narrative. And there will also be, some mention of what happened in London, Ontario. But here it goes.
It hasn't been a conventional war, but the pandemic we've all been through was a war against liberal values. The losers in this war were mostly vulnerable seniors and youth. Seniors lost their lives and dropped like bricks with not much being done to protect them. Their families lamented, but their voices were subsumed by the political dogma.
There's an element in which this is true, especially in terms of Doug Ford and long-term care homes. Yes, like the youths had to stay home and stuff, but like there was a global and still is a global pandemic. But like, yeah, I don't know what this has to do with liberal values yet. But I guess liberal values means you need to be so free that you are free to go out into the world and contract and spread diseases. Which is ironic when like you spin it because she's trying to garner she's trying to also say that they bungled how they treated old people and a bunch of old people were dropping constantly. Yet she's also in favor of what? Like removing the restrictions and having children go out into the world and spread disease to bring it back home to kill the old people? Like, I don't know what her solution is to this problem that she's like making these connections that don't seem to hang well together.
Students became isolated and attached to machines. What kind of a mindset does one expect from young people who had no outlet during the pandemic, so they veered towards their only entertainment, the internet? Ordinary citizens.
I will be honest. My kids, yes, probably increased their screen times, but at the same time, that's not all they do. They play with toys and do other things as well. Because they're kids. Just saying.
Were brainwashed to obey commands without questioning, and those who did question were rudely silenced.
Oh, yeah.
Law enforcement were given powers beyond their capacity. While shootings have become a common occurrence on the streets of Toronto, their focus was running after unmasked citizens and harassing mothers and children in parks.
My guess, if I had to put it out there, my guess is that the police were also investigating the murders. I'm just going to put it out there. I think that both those things happen. I think even in non-COVID times, police still hand out things like traffic tickets, as well as investigating murders and such. I think they do all of those all the time. I mean, like, no sympathy with the cops, and we're going to get to our next story is going to make us, like, not cool with the cops and all that fun stuff. But in this respect, the contrast you're making is just not true. I also love this like narrative of just like crime's increasing, run to the hills. It's not really increasing that much.
The biggest casualty in this war was free speech, as those who questioned the status quo were arrested or silenced by cancel culture.
I mean, Adam Skelly did not, or Adamson's Barbecue, I can't even remember his fucking name. He didn't just speak. He was mandated to close his restaurant and refused, and opened up against a court order. That's not speech. That's like breaking the law. The thing that you complained about 2 minutes ago about like, these other things are happening that are bad. He's breaking the law. That's not speech. He can complain about it all he wants. He can be like, I don't like it. They're shutting me down and I don't like it. That's using your speech.
In my perspective, amongst the winners in this war primarily were the Islamists.
We gotta pass that fucking Look, it's not funny because of all the Islamophobia that's still happening. It's just the funniness is how like seeming like what we just watched and everything that we're watching right now. When this hit me, I was just like, what the fuck does this have to do with Islam or Muslims? And we're gonna get to it, but like, holy shit. Trying to, like, it's amazing to take some things that are not connected and then still find a way to, like, weave it into your bigoted narrative. Cancel culture can arrest people? Yes, it's true. I don't think they revoked his license. He did not have a business license to begin with. The business license thing is a bit complicated. I don't think it's as like scandalous as they were saying. It's a bit like it has something to do with like it would have cost more to get the thing than to take the fine or some shit like this. And plus, it had nothing to do with like food safety. He still had to be approved for food safety and stuff like this. So it's like one of these things where like he did do something illegal in the sense of like not getting a license, but it was just the illegal thing was like he saved $50 by just taking the fine every year. It was something really weird or silly like that. But either way, that's part of the licensing aspect of his business. He was still doing like opening up his store when every other store was closing was against the law. But now let's just roll it back a bit to get this drop again and then see where she takes it.
In this war primarily were the Islamists. They are laughing all the way to the bank. Yes, there were no explosions or terror attacks, but the Islamists won.
The funny thing is when I said speaking of 9/11, I did not even think that there was going to be footage of 9/11 in this fucking video, but there it was.
That's what that was?
Yeah, I think that was the streets of New York.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Somehow, the Islamists have won. Okay?
You may ask how.
Yes, how?
And I'll tell you.
Please tell me, Raheel. I need to know.
Islamists made alliances with organizations on the far left like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. They cheered at the removal of Donald Trump.
So, first two things. Somehow Antifa, Black Lives Matter, let's even just take the Islamic extremism or Islamic fascist organizations. Somehow, anti-fascists reached across the pond and was like, we're allies. At some summit? Like, when did this happen? When did this happen?
Oh, you missed that vote? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what I'm guessing is she thinks it's just because anti-fascists can be Muslim, but then also have Muslim friends and can ally with Muslim groups. That somehow
I mean,
that's the
yeah, my
reason?
guess is going to be solidarity with Palestine.
Yes. Notice how they had 0 arrests for Muslims in lockdown protests? Oh, yeah. Didn't even think about that.
who call them out for who they are. Taliban are quickly taking over in Afghanistan after the withdrawal of US forces.
Like, I want to say, for one, what the hell does this have to do with COVID? Like, the withdrawal.
Antifa did this.
What? There's several things going on here. Like, not to get involved in the whole question about Afghanistan or any of this stuff, but it's like maybe this wouldn't have been a problem if America didn't invade them in the first place. Maybe. Not that like things were perfect in Afghanistan before that, but then to say that like somehow America leaving, well then when are they supposed to leave? Are they ever supposed to leave? Are they
An
supposed to
important
stay
thing
there
too.
indefinitely? Like, do these people get to have any autonomy? Like,
The Taliban offered to surrender in 2001.
yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Wait, what?
like there
I didn't even.
were offers of surrender in 2001, like immediately after the invasion, and America didn't want that because it didn't look as dramatic, and like they were, you know, beating them
Don't speak for
super
all of
badly
America, because
like
I
that.
fucking wanted that. Don't
Yeah.
don't speak for all.
The government, whatever. America as institution.
Will you whatever me? Would I ask you not to lump me in with the fucking government I had no fucking voting power in? Don't you fucking whatever me.
Elrod confirmed Bush lackey.
Yeah. Fucking yeah. How old was I? I would have been 11. That's right. I was 11.
Calling for a flat tax.
10-year-old fucking like Bush better go to war is what I'm voting for. Come on.
It's just like I think Two Cars makes a good point here too, which is that Donald Trump was calling for this too. So like she immediately pivots from like the left teamed up with the Islamo-fascists in their hatred with Donald Trump, and then they pulled out of Afghanistan, and it's like, yeah, Donald Trump was signaling that he wanted this, but never did it. But he was talking constantly that he wanted to. He even had a meeting with the Taliban, didn't he? Wasn't that a thing that happened? Or am I making that up? Here, I'm going to Google that. Trump, Taliban.
Okay, while Jody is Googling that, I have a Wiggles aside again. On January 17th, 2020, Greg Page, also known as the original Yellow Wiggle, who retired briefly and then came back, had a heart attack on stage
Jesus.
while performing for children.
Well, they give it, you know. Kudos to the Wiggles. They know how to give it. So
How did we not, like, did that news just get buried because of COVID? Like,
was it recent?
it was 2020.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The Wiggles PR machine
Yeah.
trying to keep things on the down low, honestly.
So I guess
we can't be out here telling everyone the Wiggles are having heart attacks. You just can't allow that.
Stopped breathing and required CPR and 3 jolts from a defibrillator. I really hope that all happened on stage.
Oh my God,
That'd be so.
Apparently the meeting
my
with the Taliban never happened, but it was organized and it was supposed to end the war. But I can't remember why they decided not to go ahead with it. But it was in the works that Trump was going to talk with the Taliban and somehow end the war. Yeah, now we're going to get into the London thing, I think. Well.
Locally, the Islamists made most of the horrific tragedy in London, Ontario, where a Muslim family was killed. Imagine
what? Islamists made the most of it?
The shock of the grieving family when they heard Munir al-Qasim say,
whatever is happening in Jerusalem and Gaza is related to whatever happened in London, Ontario.
And I will say,
Fuck yeah! I
My-
still get chills every time I hear that. Like,
some of that cheering was me. I was there cheering when that sentence was uttered. Okay, and not a Muslim, still enjoyed it. The weird,
well, you're the Antifa that
Yeah.
has sided with the Islamists.
yeah, our podcast is that. Before
Yeah,
each
you-
recording, we look at each other and shake hands. This alliance
We
is
are the
strong.
unity of Antifa and Islamists.
Uh, the thing is, like, I personally don't know to what extent the family feels politically, but neither does she. And to say that about the family is almost worse. You know what I mean? To assume that they would be shocked that this person would say something like this. Like, my guess is they probably have some thoughts about what's going on in Palestine, and it's probably not shared with her. They are Muslim. Like, it's very, in a way, disgusting for her to use their deaths to make some, like, weird point like this that doesn't even make any fucking sense.
Oh, in a way, it's disgusting, Jody.
Well, my brain's just filling in words. I don't know. It
Yeah,
is
no, it's just
disgusting.
like
I don't know why my brain's sitting
It's
in a
just like
way.
one
You're
of
right.
those-
It is disgusting.
the same thing where Laurent yells at you for being an apologist. We're just like, oh, well, you know, maybe they mean this. Or like, if we're to take it charitably.
I think part of it is I'm used to
also-
like dealing with like fragile white people, so you got to speak in a bit like, well, like and try to like walk around their emotions, and then
No
You know.
more.
no, I know, especially not in this crowd. We all feel the same, other than the people who spam the chat with racism.
Also, Nam has named you as the atheist outreach officer for the Islamic Brotherhood.
Oh yeah, all right, sure.
Solidarity.
Outreach achieved. At our next meeting, we will discuss overthrowing the capitalistic world order. Break. Ah.
Islamists love toppling of statues.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. You know what? Yeah, yeah. Amazingly, a religion that is like, we don't like depictions of the human form. Sure. Okay.
But like,
But also, yeah, I
many
guess
people tear down
ISIS?
statues. Like, what about the people in Iraq that tore down the statues of Saddam and like?
Those were
Were they-
Islamists, Jody. Those were Islamists.
Were they?
I don't know.
And like,
I'm just like,
all of this
Um,
is so silly. My God.
just on like the note of statues, there were like jokes on Twitter during the BLM stuff of like people getting mad at Muslims for being like, yeah, tear down the Confederate statues type of thing, being like, oh yeah, we're gonna go tear down all the statues of the Prophet Muhammad, and it's like, bro, there aren't any.
Yeah, exactly. Where?
None. Like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll tear them down too. Like, come on, let's go.
I don't even know what. I'm guessing this stuff on the right here is apparently, according to her, Islamists tearing down statues. Like, what is the context
I
of
think
this
it's-
video?
ISIS in a museum in Mosul or somewhere in Iraq.
It tells me that it is quite possible that even the people who built the statues were Muslim. Probably.
I mean, no, because I think it's probably a like Mesopotamian like
Okay.
history museum. There were, or like Christian, or like there were a lot of,
Well, I mean, a lot of this, like
you
that
know,
stuff predates.
don't gotta hand it to ISIS type drill tweet. Like,
Well, I'm not like. I don't know any of the context. I'm just saying it would be like weird if it was like them condemning, like they like to think of all Muslims as being like these extremists when it's like they were probably created by Muslims too. Although you're probably right that it has more to do with Mesopotamian art and stuff like that.
yeah. Like the Taliban destroyed like a giant, like one of the oldest statues of Buddha in Afghanistan that was like from I think the year like 500 or something like that. Like it was old and like huge. And one of the first acts of the Taliban government was to bomb it, despite I think it might have been like a UNESCO heritage site or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, like
Yeah, that
tearing down statues in a bad way is possible.
Yes.
But
I mean, tearing down Queen Victoria in Winnipeg is fucking based. So.
Yeah, and also not related to ISIS. Like,
no, they're the same thing. Did you know the Islamists were sitting back in the ISIS was in Iraq, going, "Yes, get Queen Victoria." ISIS sends out a message: "We stand in solidarity."
God.
Jesus.
And burning of churches. All this happening while law enforcement is too busy catching anti-maskers and those who wish to worship in churches. Today, the Islamists have won because their Islamophobia hype has been validated by the government, and they're busy getting funding to implement various projects labeled anti-racist, but which are...
So, notice how she calls it Islamophobia hype, but she just blamed are saying that the Islamists have won because indigenous people are possibly burning churches in response to a ongoing genocide. And that's why the Islamists have won. And then notice when she brought up the family in London, I don't think she even mentioned the motivation of the killer, which was to murder these people because they were Muslim. But Islamophobia is hype, according to her.
The thing is, like, that's, like, it's the worst attack that's happened in the past year on Muslims in Canada, but, like, a...
Quebec mosque shooting, yeah.
The stabbing in Toronto, of like a man outside of the mosque, the guy in Saskatoon who was like tackled to the ground and had his beard cut off, just in an effort to humiliate him for being Muslim and growing his beard.
There's
the numerous like
several hate crimes in
attacks and assaults, and like in Hamilton and Kitchener, in like Kingston, in fucking like everywhere. And it's like, I don't know how this woman looks herself in the mirror. Like,
and she's gonna somehow connect this to M103, which is I think what this motion is. And she highlights here. It says condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism. Oh no, the government condemned something. Like, apparently this is the worst thing to ever happen in Canada. Was the government came together and was like, we condemn this.
But which are only an extension of Motion 103. The sad part is that the Islamists did not have to do any work or make an effort. Our leaders have done all the dirty work for them. When the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, says...
The reality is our Canada is a place of racism.
While he is a visible minority himself, it gives the Islamists more fuel for their anti-West agenda.
So,
Fuck.
Jugmeat, in responding to the fact that our country is committing an ongoing genocide, then says that we're a racist country, and in saying that, it provides fuels to the Islamists because he's also an ethnic minority. This person is fucked up.
Nam brought up Umberto Eco's Urfascism, where it's like, oh, the enemy is both small and large, ridiculous and menacing. And that's kind of like how she's treating Muslims.
It's
in
weird
this
too
video.
because she's saying like they didn't even do anything. Like it was almost like we just did everything the Islamists wanted. or apparently Trudeau did. You know. Muslim Trudeau. Well, yeah, exactly. I like two cars here. If Jugmeat was white, then it wouldn't have been fuel to Islamists. So it's only because he's an ethnic minority. None of this makes any sense. Like, I wish, like, you know, explain more, Raheel. Well, like, I probably don't want her to explain more because it's probably vile and racist, but...
This war has been won by the Islamists at every level of government.
Every
On a
level.
municipal level, we have the call to prayer being broadcast over a loudspeaker. And this, by the way, is...
Wait, Toronto's mosque received public
Huh?
prepared noise bylaw exemption until Ramadan. Why do we care about this? Why is... this is literally just like... They're praying. How dare they
Sorry,
pray?
so this is May 4th, 2020 that they got it. They got the exemption until Ramadan.
How long is Ramadan?
It's a month. And, like, I think it probably started... I don't remember in 2020 when it started, but it was, like, around May.
Received
So-
public call to prayer noise bylaw exemption.
So they got, like, a month and a half of a bylaw exemption? In
And
2020?
why is this a concern? Like, when does the call to prayer happen? Like, how often? It's not
5 times a day.
So, like, would they be, like, blasting at the, like, highest volume at, like, 3 in the morning, the call to prayer?
I mean, 4 or 5, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, it also depends. Like, my
like,
guess is this
afternoon.
is in an area that is predominantly Muslim, considering the mosque is there.
I mean, it wouldn't be predominantly, but it would have
or like a
decent
higher
number of
proportion. Yeah,
Muslims.
that's what I meant.
Yeah. No, and it's like it's once pretty early in the morning for like 3-4 minutes. So if you can sleep through a thunderstorm, you can sleep
Yeah.
through the call to prayer. Like,
No, that's I can't believe like that. This is the kind of stuff she's turned into. My God, the Islamists have won. They extended a call to prayer bylaw exemption.
yeah.
Oh my God.
the municipal level, we have the call
'Cause
to prayer
This is ISIS has taken over the municipal level by extending a call to prayer.
being broadcast over
Oh
a
my
loudspeaker.
God.
And this, by the way, is even a contentious issue in Muslim countries. On a provincial level, we see permission given to a
contentious issue?
hateful event called Al-Quds Day Parade, which was instituted by Ayatollah Khomeini and is entirely a political game being played out on the streets of Toronto and other cities. On a federal level, we see
I know nothing
selective
about that,
protection
but go
of a particular community in the form of motions
couldn't
to
follow
prevent
it.
so-called Islamophobia, which is a word created after 9/11 by the Muslim Brotherhood.
Confirmed.
Off.
Me, in solidarity, since I am the atheist outreach to the Muslim Brotherhood, we enacted a pact to create the word Islamophobia after September 11th. So this, I would have been like 16 or 15. And we met up and we were like, given that this happened, let's create a word. Let's go. And then it happened. Look at that. Magic.
Yes, hate, bigotry, and xenophobia do exist. There is
Yeah,
hate
we're
against
watching it.
Muslims, there is hate against blacks, against Asians, and the LGBTQ community. There is even hate against white people. The oldest, most extreme form of
So this person, I can't believe she's doing it. This person is a member of the JDL, Jewish Defense League, which is considered a terrorist group in the United States, and instigated a fight with Palestinian activists in Toronto. They had brought the weapons and the knives, and this person got injured. And that's all the right keeps like showing their fan bases is this person with this injury. But he is a member of a street thug gang, basically, to harass Palestinians. So, wonderful dude. And we'll say members of the JDL in London, again, where a asshole murdered a Muslim family because they're Muslim. The JDL would show up to Pegida rallies and protect Pegida from protesters. And Pegida are against the Islamization of the West, and their leader is a neo-Nazi in Germany. So, good fun that this Jewish Defense League, this poor, innocent old man, is a part of a group that promotes Nazis.
hate is against the Jewish community, where recent figures show it is at an all-time high. And we must fight all this hate through.
And I will say they always love to chart up that statistic, and it's an accurate statistic for what it's worth, and it is bad that Jewish people receive hate crimes, right? But often what this doesn't take into account is the disparity between how violent the acts are. So often the hate crimes that target the Jewish community tend to be like stenciling the swastikas against the side of a building, like a synagogue, and that is terrible and bad and racist, and I'll condemn it all the fucking time. But they're not receiving the kind of violent extremist hate that Muslims are experiencing in our country. When you take into account things like murders, they're a bit disproportionate. All hate crimes are bad, but for them to be like, oh, well, why aren't we focusing here when you already in this video downplayed a hate crime that was committed against Muslim people?
Education and programs that help integrate communities. If you really want to understand hate, ask the Coptic Christians of Egypt. Ask the Muslim Ahmadiyya community of Pakistan. Ask the Uyghurs of China and the minorities living in Iran. It was after 9/11 I had said that this is not a war of weapons. It is a war of ideas. And if we want to preserve our liberal values of freedom of speech, equality, and human rights, we must have better and stronger ideas. But it seems that the war of ideas has been won by the Islamists. We can't reverse this.
Did you know that? The war of ideas have been won. I love how we, like, the other day we learned that the war of ideas have won, that Christian supremacy is no longer a thing, and atheists are treated fairly in America. And in this case, the Islamists have won the war of ideas. I didn't know, like, all these different groups winning these war of ideas, apparently. I love to know, too, it's like, what? It is amazing to me. Like, she's making these claims, none of which are true. But then it's like, it's amazing just in contrast with all the other right-wing people talking right now. She seems still, she was so traumatized to a certain degree by 9/11 that it is still the thing that, like, roots all her hatreds and bigotries to this community. She can't, like, she's referred to it more than once in this video. And has used it to downplay ongoing hate crimes. Like, this 9/11 was bad, agreed. But, like, this gets to an extent where it's like, you know, maybe don't use it to then create further hate crimes, you know?
this trend as individuals, but it must come from a collective strategy in which all Canadians speak out and make it happen. Although elections are just around the corner, despite what I have said, I fear that Canadians have not woken up and smelt the coffee to bring about any constructive change. It is sad, but I still have hope, and I pray that you do too. This is Raheel Raza for Rebel News.
Well, I love like constructive change by what? Voting in conservative parties, which want to take us back to like Christian feudalism? I don't know what you're talking about. What a horrifying
It'd be
person.
very funny if you were a Green Party supporter.
You know, at this pace, it wouldn't surprise me.
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.